name is Alison Wilcox. As you can see, I use this wheelchair. It actually gives me so much independence, and it's not actually a bad thing. But I wanted to make an awareness video and tell my story of how I ended up using a wheelchair, because the way I ended up with a spinal cord injury is really common these days, and I don't want anyone to go through what I've been through. It's my disability isn't the end of the world, but it does compromise a lot of my quality of life. I just want to tell my story. So 10 years ago, I was in a car accident. My best friend Kim, Sam and I decided to go up to Narrabri to go to the races. So on Friday afternoon, I finished my job at KFC. I was in my gap year. I was a surf coach and worked at KFC and loved to surf. So after I finished, we packed up. My mum said as we're leaving the house to Sam, be careful driving, because you've got the most precious package in your car. And so it took us 5 hours to get to Narrabri. We had a fun weekend, did the races on Saturday, and on Sunday we were coming home. We went to Hungry Jack's. And then I shotgun front pushed Kim over. We were always very physical with each other. I pushed her over and jumped in the front, and she said to me, well, if you're in the front, I get to control the music. And I said, no, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. So Kim was in the back. I don't know what she was doing. I think she had earphones in, or reading, or just having a little nap. I was in the front, and the drive was pretty long. It was raining on and off all day, and about 3.5 hours in, we came over Walker Mountain, which is a huge mountain range. The mountains are really high. Some spots have vegetation, some have none. But we came over to the top of the mountain. We started to get some phone signal. So the driver of the car, Kim, was in the back behind the driver's seat. The driver was driving and I was in the front passenger seat. So the driver started to get messages from having signal, and she kept looking down to see who was messaging her. And as she was doing that, I was taking photos outside the car. We still had flip phones then. I was taking photos outside the car, and I turned around to Kim and I said to her, oh, imagine going down there. And Kim just laughed at me and said, oh, that wouldn't happen. And then 15 minutes later, driver was distracted, looking down, and then she lost control of the car for 150 meters. And then we rolled 14 times down the mountain. We rolled on like a diagonal level. So I think it was like 50 or 100 feet, the mountain. It was quite high. We rolled. On about the third roll, I got knocked out. My head went through the side window and broke the side window. And Kim was awake for the whole of it. Even though I had my seatbelt on, which did save my life, I was still being ragdolled around the car. I think after I got knocked out, my limbs were just going everywhere. We got to the bottom of the mountain, and we hit an embankment. And I don't know if I remember the scenery quite correctly, but it matches up with Kim's story as well. But we got to the bottom of the mountain. I woke up. Kim started to climb out over the top of me, and she was going, come on, Al, get out. Come on, get out. Al, you need to get out of the car. And I couldn't breathe, and I just said, Kim, I can't breathe. Kim, I can't breathe. And when I was saying this, she was running around the car. I remember her footsteps running around the car. A lot of this stuff I wake up to at night. I think that's classed as PTSD, but I hear her feet running around the car, and I was like, Kim, I can't breathe. Kim, I can't move. And I was saying as loud as I could, but it was just a whisper. So she climbed back in and she lowered me down onto the ground. And she had a huge cut on her leg. Her whole leg muscle was cut in half. So she wasn't like adrenaline just hit her. She got me breathing. She told the driver to stay near me to make sure I didn't cardiac arrest at that time. Yeah, but she climbed back up to the top of the mountain. I don't know how she with her leg. They said that was like, you hear those stories of people lifting cars off babies. That was one of those things. And then she just did a deathly scream at the top of the mountain. I remember hearing it at the bottom. And like, we only passed one car in a whole 3.5 hour trip. So the chances of a car going past were really slim. But somehow, like, miraculously, I don't know, a cop car drove past, coincidentally. So he jumped out to help. And also this farmer who was 5 to 10 kilometers away. He was like so far away. He came and he's like, I heard your screams. I heard them. They were like, it gave him shivers and he just felt sick and he's like, I need to go find where these are coming from. They got there and Kim just looked like a horror movie. She had blood all over her, my blood and her blood just everywhere. So they came down the mountain, they lifted me out of the car. And I remember I was just in so much pain, I couldn't breathe. I remember my nerve pain starting from that point. As soon as I had my spinal injury, my nerve pain started and it felt like glasses all in my legs. I felt like shooting pain in my legs. And I couldn't breathe. And Kim sat next to me. I remember she sat next to me in a ball and I couldn't, my vision at the time was really bad. My eyes were bleeding. My lips came off, like broke all my back, broke all my ribs. The police officer said, oh, don't worry, darling. If you broke your back or injured yourself, you'd be screaming more than this. And I found out that I punctured both lungs with my ribs and my lungs were filling up with blood. So the reason I wasn't screaming is because I was drowning, which is the exact feeling that, like, I just felt like I was drowning. It was awful. So everything I was looking at had like a blood haze to it. So when I think about it, it just is like a horror movie. So they called an ambulance, and when the ambulance arrived, they did some tests and they were like, she needs a helicopter. They need to get her a helicopter. But the good thing about the ambulance arriving is they gave me heaps of drugs. So like, I was in so much pain. The drugs didn't mask the pain, but they just made my mood a bit better. Like, I was making jokes with the ambo drivers. They had to carry me to the top up the cliff mountain. And she was puffing and I was like, you should go to the gym more. You shouldn't be puffing. And then she was laughing and I was laughing. But I don't know. In the helicopter took like 2 hours to get there because it came from Newcastle. It's just a horror movie, the whole thing. When the helicopter came, inside the helicopter, I had like a cardiac arrest. I felt like Pulp Fiction. They like stabbed me in both sides of my lungs and drained all the fluid, drained all the blood. But yeah, that was really painful. They put me into an induced coma. The helicopter ride was so painful. The bumps of the ride, I could just feel my broken neck and back just moving. And it was just incredibly painful. I like kept passing out from the pain. It was that bad. My mind's blocked a lot of it with how painful it was. So we got to, Kim and the driver went to Wauchope Hospital. The police said to Kimmy, oh, what's Alison's parents' number? And Kimmy was like, I'll call, I'll let them know. So Kim called Dad and it would have been like 10 o'clock, just before 10. He was just about to head to his night duty. And she said, we've been in an accident. Ali's gone to Sydney, you need to start driving to Sydney. This is where I get emotional because I feel sorry for my parents. So Dad went and packed me some clothes to bring me home the next day. Yeah. Yeah, because you never think your daughter's going to be critically injured. So they started driving to Sydney. I got flown to Newcastle. The pilot said to the doctors at Newcastle, she's not getting out here, she's going to Royal North Shore. She'll die if you bring her in here, she'll die. So he lost his license for a week, but he saved my life, so he's like, he doesn't care about that. Westpac helicopters, donate, they're the best. So when I got to Royal North Shore, I was in and out of it because they kept inducing me. I woke up with 30 doctors standing around me talking about what they wanted to do, what injuries I had. They did all the MRIs. I had a really great nurse. I was in like the resus thing because I kept like, I wasn't breathing. They had to I was on breathing machines, like life support machines and all that. My parents got there about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And the doctor said to my dad, would you like to tell her that she'll never walk again? Do you want to tell her? And Dad was like, I'm not telling my daughter that. So my parents came in to see me. So they were told this before seeing me. My parents came in to see me. My mum just dropped on the floor. She didn't take it very well. She like just sat on the floor. I didn't look like a human. I didn't look like an alive 18-year-old girl. My whole face was messed up. Everything. I was swollen. I had machines breathing for me. I had so much blood. Like they had to shave my head because there was so much blood in my hair. Yeah, so my mum couldn't see me. Dad sat next to me and held my hand all night. And then after they saw me for about an hour, the doctor came in and said, Alison, you have a spinal cord injury, you're never going to walk again. And my first response to that was, I was high, so I didn't quite grasp much of it, but I squeezed Dad's hand and I said, I couldn't turn, I couldn't move, I was in so much pain. I just said to Dad, I'm 18, I'm only 18, Dad, I just want to go for a surf. And he started crying, and then I started crying. And I don't even know where Mum was. She was probably hiding somewhere, just mortified with the whole situation. And then I spoke to my sister on the phone. She was flying up in the morning, and she was just crying the whole time. And it was like, it's fine, it's fine. I was like high as a kite. It's fine, Sal. It's all right. And then I called Kimmy at 6 a.m. and I said, Kimmy, I'm alive. And what I didn't know, like, I'm alive, but I'm never going to walk again. It's going to be okay. What I didn't know is our War Hope Hospital, they admitted her. No one would let her know if I was alive or dead. She had to sign herself out at like 5 a.m. because no one would tell her if I was alive. And they knew I was alive. Like, they could easily have called. I was at Royal North Shore by that time on life support, but like my heart was still beating. So she had a huge tantrum, flipped tables in her room and lost the plot because she just wanted to know if her best friend was alive. Like the last time she saw me, she said that I looked dead. So yeah, but yeah, I called her at 6 a.m. and then by like midday I had a 12-hour surgery to stabilize my back. That was the most important thing, was stabilizing my back, because I broke 9 vertebrae and all my ribs, so the chances of getting a higher injury if they didn't do that. So my injuries, C3 incomplete, T4 complete, but I function at T1. So technically I'm a quad, but I function like a high para. Yeah, but yeah, so that was the story of it. don't text and drive, especially when you have people in the car. Yeah, that's my story. Hopefully, I cried before this, so I wouldn't cry during it. But yeah, hopefully you take something away from this. Thank you.